What's going on, everybody? Josh Engleman here for Awesemo.com, and I am back with the process. And this one's going to be reimagined just a little bit. For those of you that have watched the process for the entire NBA season this year and of last year, you know that this was a show where we went through NBA rotations, and it was more on the prep of the projection side of everything. And that's great. And when it comes to the NBA, I think that's incredibly necessary. It's obviously something that I love to do a lot. And I don't have a choice. I'm doing that work no matter what. So it always made sense to me to turn the camera on and just do it with everybody else. Now, that said, that's not the same sort of situation for some other sports, baseball in particular. Prep is just me pasting things into a spreadsheet, which people don't really need to watch. That'll take like 2 minutes. But I think that the theme of the process show needs to exist in some way. And that's what this is going to be. So this is the new process. And don't think for a second that the basketball version of this is going away next year. That is always going to exist to me. Probably going to kick it a little bit later. Maybe not 6:30. Maybe we start at 7 because those 5:30 starts just aren't appealing to me. Not the point right now. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to look at things in a different way because I don't think that this type of content really exists in the industry. And it's part of like every question that we get is sort of rooted in what I want to do here. So let me get adjusted here. By the way, brought to you by PrizePicks. Repping the gear. You see the banners all over the place. Now you will see this says PrizePicks Strategy Show. I loaded this up a little bit faster than I should have and didn't have all of my graphical stuff prepped. But the PrizePicks stuff is all absolutely correct. But we'll get a better lower moving forward. But this one is going to be slightly baseball based. Here's what I want to do. And I want to hear in the comments section. This is going to have to be a community thing. I want to hear what you guys think in the comment section. You can see my DraftKings screen shared on here right now. It's on here. You'll see the balance is set at $100 right now. I don't want to say that this is a bankroll challenge because that's not necessarily the path that we are taking it on. But that is the amount of money that I'm going to use for every slate. We talk so much about 150 max, and that's generally the theme of everything that we do. That's just how it is. We want the biggest contests are generally 150 max contests. We tailor our content to the biggest contests that exist. Therefore, our content tends to be the same way. And I've said from the beginning, and for the most part, like this is a 100% true statement. There's not a gigantic difference between talking about 150 max and talking about playing a single lineup. You're still trying to do the same things. It's on the margins where things start to change. I wanted to approach this for somebody that isn't necessarily going to be playing 150 lineups. It's possible on certain days that we could, and we'll get into that in a second. But I want to look at what are the best single entry contests? What are the best 3 max, 5 max, 20 max contests that we can get into? But I didn't want to just spend all sorts of money either. I think $100 for a slate, I know that's going to still be aggressive to a large chunk of people that will watch this show. I get that. It seemed like the easiest threshold because if I do a piece of content that's $10, I just think that less people are going to be interested at that point in time. At 100, I think you can sort of see the direction we're going to want to go. I'm going to do this for baseball. Not every single day, but maybe 3 or 4 times a week. I want to do this for PGA. I want to do this for MMA. I'm certainly going to hit the next couple finals games that exist. Even sports that maybe I don't necessarily touch. I don't know anything about F1. I don't know anything about NASCAR. It's possible down the line that we cross some of these sports and take a look at some of the contests. I want to show you guys what I want to look at to pick contests that I want to enter. And I want to show you why I want to do that. And this isn't necessarily it's never going to be a picks video. It's not about the lineups. I want to show you what contests I think are best to be entered in order to try and grow a bankroll. It's not necessarily just going to be DraftKings. We're going to do this same sort of situation at, hell, PrizePicks, for instance. I think that's going to be a very good example for something like this. FanDuel, obviously, although a little bit harder because some of the data isn't easily scrapable, but I'm going to work on that. That's not your problem. That's my problem. Yahoo, absolutely a great place to build. You'll see on a Yahoo day where I'll compare a couple contests. We're going to pay a lot less in management fees, better payout structures at the top. For now, we're going to look at DraftKings. This is baseball season. We're going to look at today's baseball slate. Now, it's going to be part bankroll management, part this is what you guys should be doing to grow. Here are the things that you should be looking at. This is the process. To me, this is the process of playing DFS. The projections, the picks. We have a million shows at this point in time where you can get that information. Strategy shows, deeper dives, live before locks, etc. This is going to need to be a little bit different. And there's going to be times where we'll do this live, so I'll be happy to have some guys here where we're talking through some of it. Maybe we're doing it and it's, closer to an early slate lock. Maybe we could do a little bit more. But anyway, this is where we're at right now. I want to do $100 worth of MLB contests for today. And this is sort of the process that I would go through in order to select them. Now, I'm not worried about cash games or anything right now. I want to play GPPs. I want a higher prize pool in the end. So first thing that I normally do when I get to DraftKings is simply just start filtering down. So I filter down by tournaments, I filter down by guaranteed, I filter down by classic mode, and I filter to my slate. You can do this same sort of process across the board for turbos and late slates and whatever. Right now, I'm looking at the main slate. I'm on the deeper dive tonight. That's not going to be important for the retroactive nature of this video, but I'll talk more picks later today. So these are all the contests that we have today with guaranteed prize pools from a GPP perspective. Now, obviously, I'm not getting into the 777. I'm not getting into the ball 4 special at 250 or the qualifiers or the battery or the batter's eye. These are outside the range. So the first thing that I want to do is just cut this down. I'm going to go straight to $30 as a cap for entry fee. That cleans it up a bit. Now we've got the relay throw at $15. Just not a contest that I'm going to get into with a single bullet or 5 bullets. This is 150 max. I don't have enough power to get into that contest with $100. I wouldn't want a single lineup in it. So we're going to pay a little bit more attention to everything else that we have here. And the first thing that I want to point out, I'm just going to open up the 4-seamer and talk about the things that I care about most. So we know that the entry is $4. There's 14,863 people in this contest. That is a $50,000 prize pool. We know that we're getting 20 entries. Here is the payout for the contest. And this is one of the biggest pieces that I want to talk about because it gets talked about a lot. Like, what's a good contest? What's a bad contest? That's a good payout structure. That's a bad payout structure. And for the most part, it's not that I disagree with the way that it gets talked about. I don't know why it gets talked about the way that it gets talked about, because in the grand scheme of things, to any one individual, the payout structure is whatever you like. A good payout structure is whatever you want it to be. If you're able to withstand losses and you have a deeper bankroll than other people, then the spread here isn't all that important. If you can handle taking a beating after beating after beating because this is so aggressively top heavy that it's one and done, that's fine. You just have to be able to wait that out. It doesn't really change the contest at all. So I'm not necessarily concerned what first pays or second pays or third pays. That's not what I'm going to be worried about here. What I'm worried about now is what I'm about to show on the screen in Excel. And that's this. And I'm going to walk through every single bit of this, but I'm in the wrong workbook. That's fine. Is this. I was in my golf version of it. So I have gone through and grabbed most of the contests that I can get to today, given the fact that we have this $100 cap. And I have the names of the contests here. Obviously, the site is DraftKings. how much the buy-in is, the amount of total entries in the contest, the amount of max entries that we can put in. So, 20 maxes here, 150 maxes for the 2 mini maxes, the amount of total prizes. And then this is the piece that I think is most important. And I'm going to detail the 4-seamer here to make things look a little bit better, because that's what we have up right now. This is the amount of money, $21,830 of the entire $50,000 prize pool. That is the amount of money that gets paid out if you finish in the top 1% of the contest. The top 1% of entries. So in this case, the top 100 I rounded up. So 149. If you finish in the top 149, you have a 1% entry. In my opinion, I think this is the most important indicator of everything that you do. In theory, it's 5% as well, because 1% is a pretty narrow bucket. It takes a while to build that sample up. But in my opinion, finishing in the top 1% is your best indicator of success for that particular lineup. And I don't think that you have control over a lineup in the top 1%. To me, you want as many lineups as you can possibly get into the top 1%, and you want to hope that the day that you have it is the day that it finishes first or second or whatever. I don't think that you can build lineups to be in the top 1% that are better to be in first than they are to be, in this case, in like 71st. I don't think there's a noticeable difference there. I don't really think that you can build to change that. So my goal always is to get as many lineups as I can into the top 1% of a contest. To me, that is the way that I think that I will succeed the most. That is the data that I want to track. And that is going to be the data that I track in this video series. I'm going to enter content. I'm going to talk about what I'm going to enter with this $100. Hell, I'll probably do it while we're on the stream right now. On the next show, or potentially the show after that, if I don't have a show the next day, like I might just aggregate 2 of them. I'm going to analyze these results. You guys will see how many lineups I put into the top 1%, what that breakdown starts to look like as we start to build a bigger and bigger sample of everything that's happening. Because to me, that is the way to determine how good you're doing. How many lineups are you putting in that top 1%? How many are you putting in the top 5%, the top 10%? I want to concentrate to the tip of the spear. And this is where it starts. I went through all of these contests and pulled all of the payout data. So in this case, for the 4-seamer, I took this data, I took all of the prize payouts, and I have a little table over here that I could paste this into. And all I have to do here is change the amount of total entries, which in this case we know 14,863. When I do that, we find out that there's $21,830 in the top 1%. So this won't be important, but just to show people how we're doing it, like obviously first gets added in for 5,000, and then 2,500, and then 1,500, and then 1,000, and then 750 for 5th. You get 1,200 total for 6th and 7th. All of this adds up to you get to that top spot, the 149th spot in the contest. I want to know what that total is. And I want to know that total so that I know what I get out of finishing in the top 1%. And that's what the rest of this data in this table is going to show. And this is going to be our driving factor of contest selection. I don't care how steep the slope is at this point in time. If you don't have a ton of money, that is going to be more important. It's not important for me in this case. I want to know what I'm going to do when my lineups are best, because that's going to cover me for the longest amount of time. So column H, dollars to max, should be relatively intuitive. It takes $20 to max enter the solo shot. It's $1 entry, 20 max contest, costs us $20 to enter it in full. $80 to max enter the 4-seamer, $150 for the dollar mini max, 50 cent or $75 for the 50-cent mini max, all the way down the line. Entry percentage. This is what percentage of the contest you have if you enter that contest and max it. It's always going to be in your best interest. Well, okay, maybe not always, because as you get up in stakes, you're going to be having more difficult competition. But I want to, as little as possible, enter a contest where I'm not taking the maximum share that I can. So a max entered solo shot covers 0.34% of the entries. That's what sliver I have of everything. A max entered four-seamer is 0.13% of that contest, even smaller. But it also lets you know this. That's the same amount of entry capital that anybody else has in this. Also, depending on the size of the prize pool and the entry fee, you may not have most of the highest end competition going up against you. Another key feature that can't necessarily be quantified here just with raw data from DK. But this is where we get into the biggest piece, the piece that I'll pay attention to the most. This is what percentage of the top 1% is paid out. So the solo shot pays out 45% to the top 1%. The four-seamer, which we're looking at right now, that 21,830 is 37% of the entire prize pool. That's where we stand here. If you just choose a random entry in the top 1%. So if you, on average, a 1% lineup in the four-seamer pays $147. Now, clearly, finishing first is different than finishing 149th or whatever it is. Yeah, 149th. But on average, this is what you get for a 1% lineup. That's what you should expect. That's exciting. That is the biggest piece of information to me. Because what I want to know is, how does that relate to my buy-in? And that's what you'll see here. An individual lineup in the four-seamer is $4. If that lineup finishes in the top 1%, you expect $147. That is a ratio of 36.6. So it's 36.6 times your buy-in is what you get for a 1% lineup. To me, I want as much money as I possibly can in relationship to my buy-in for finishing in the top 1%. And that is what you see in column L. The ratio of your 1% payout to buy-in. For example, the solo shot pays $45 per 1% lineup. It's $1 to get in for each single lineup. 44.8 is the ratio. To me, that's the tournament I am going to enter first in the MLB today. It's only a $5,000 prize pool. But if I'm putting lineups into the top 1%, I'm getting the most bang for my buck here. Now, you'll see, for the most part, rake is the same across the board. As you go up in entry fee, the rake will rise. That's just how this works. So right away, right out of the gate, I am entering 20 lineups into the solo shot because I think it is the best possible contest for me. So as I scroll down, solo shot, bang, max enter 20. I'm just going to put a generic placeholder lineup in here. So let's do that. I won't use the crowns or tickets that I have for right now, but we're going to go ahead and max enter this, and we're going to put those 20 entries in because I think it's the best contest. I hope you guys are getting that so far. We'll put those in. Got $80 left. Now, obviously, that works out very well in this case. I would say the four-seamer, $4 a pop, 20 entries. The mini-max, $1 a pop. Now, you can just look at this. Mini-max to mini-max. Very different. Very different. The $1 entry mini-max, in my opinion, a much better contest to enter than the 50-cent mini-max. Now, if you can't max the 50-cent mini-max, very different story. It's not that drastic. But you are giving back a little bit, in my opinion, when you succeed. So I can very clearly see this is where the line in the sand is. These three contests. Would I like to get into the base hit right now? $12 single entry contest. To me, the best single entry contest you're going to find on DK for today. That would be the one that I would want to get into. If you got $12, that's probably what I would do. Single bullet into the base hit. Take my chances. I'm not going to be maxing the mini max at this point in time. If we start to see a gigantic bankroll growth, we'll take some shots in 150s like this. Or we'll go to the 75 first and build it up even further. We're not going to talk about like how much of your bankroll you should be playing. These are personal questions. I can't tell anybody how much money they should spend. I can't tell people how aggressive they should be with their money. There are rules of thumb that you can use that will make this type of thing a lot easier. If you're how much money like you're willing to just continue to pump back in, how nervous are you about going broke? That would change the contest you want to get here. That is not for me to decide because everybody has a different relationship with money. But as I look at this right now, the second best contest that I can get into, luckily for me, is the four-seamer. So tonight is going to be a 40 lineup entry. I'm going to play 20 different lineups in one contest in comparison to the other. Fine by me. And the two best contests that I can get into are the solo shot and the four-seamer, with obviously the solo shot being quite a bit above. But look at something like the 5-tool player, a $5 3 max contest, not a big size, smaller than the solo shot, does not pay out a ton to the top 1%. So your like min cashes are going to be a lot higher. That's just, to me, in my opinion, that bleeds you. I don't want that. I want my best chances at big numbers. So I don't like that 25.5 ratio. I'm nowhere near this contest. To me, not all that interesting for what I'm trying to do. We're going 20 in the solo shot, 20 into the four-seamer. And that is going to be our first day of entries. If you've got $100 and you're playing MLB DFS, this is what I think you should be getting into today. 20 entries into the four-seamer, 20 entries into the solo shot. Throughout the rest of the shows for today, whatever pre-recorded picks videos, MLB strategy, deeper dive, live before lock, the things that I talk about, I'm going to try to talk about in terms of the way that I'm playing these slates. So you'll get anything that you're getting out of me will be in relationship to what I'm doing for tonight. And then tomorrow, when we record this again, we'll talk about how everything finished. Please be aware of what I'm about to say, because this is going to be the biggest takeaway that we will get for this show. I am going to lose, and I am going to lose frequently. Everyone that plays DFS will have losing days more plentifully than they have winning days. Understand this. A losing day is going to be very regular. What we want, we're not worried about ROI right now. That is a secondary, it's the most important thing is how we are cashing lineups and how frequently we're putting them in the top 1% and 5%. And I'm going to show every single lineup. We're going to show all of that data every time. No one's talking about this sorts of stuff on a video. No one, we're not really, and if they are, my apologies, I haven't seen it. I'd love to see it. We don't ever talk about getting into these contests and why we should do it. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't think that I am, but maybe I'm wrong and this method isn't what we're looking for. But it's a method nonetheless. And to me, if I'm putting everything as far as I can into the top 1%, I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that that's the day that I hit first. And then I pull that $1,000 payout right now. And I start to think like, okay, well, maybe I can, instead of playing 100, I play 110 or $125 or something like that. For right now, I'm willing to just continue to just slap in $100. That wasn't the point here. That's why I cleared it out. I wanted an easier visual for what we're doing. I'm not going to be playing additionally on top of this right now. This is the way that we're going to be doing this moving forward because I want to bring people along for the ride. I want people to see what it looks like to start at the bottom, so to speak, and work your way up. And that's what we're doing today with this first process show. Again, I'm going to pop in here and do this for PGA. It's not going to be this week. I think it's the off week before the US Open. Next week, we're going to look through all of the PGA contests. We're going to do a process show for the US Open. We're going to do this for UFC cards. I'm certainly doing this for game 3 of the finals, game 4, every game of the finals moving forward. This was supposed to start last week, heading into the finals. I got COVID. Everything stopped for me. So COVID basically gone, sore throat. We're working our way through it. But that is where we are now. This is what I want this to be. I was probably way too long-winded for this first one. It's going to be a little bit of a cleaner process. But also, the other big piece here, Let me know what you guys want to see in this. Is there an idea that you guys have? Or is there some sort of documentation or question that you want answered? This is going to be like it is on the Process Show. This is a community for this type of content. It's only as good as the people that want to see it and want to take the ride with me. So I hope that everybody wants to do that. Again, tomorrow I'll be back. I'm expecting to see the same sort of contest. Maybe tomorrow, if there's like an early slate, or maybe I just look directly at a night slate, we look at the different portions because I want to evaluate things differently. We're going to see basically the same contests tomorrow. I'll save this snapshot and we'll see if anything changed. Did they move anything around based on slate size or anything along those lines? And then we'll go back and we'll pick our contests again. Now, just be aware. Let's say that I take a bath tonight. I lose $40 down to 60. I'm topping it back up to 100 again, and we're approaching it the same way. Obviously, that's not going to be the thing that everybody's going to be able to do. This isn't going to be as interesting if I'm not starting at a baseline of 100 a day. So call it a $100 a day bankroll challenge if you want. Call it the process. I'd prefer it. That's what the process is about to be for the near future. At the very least, until we get to the NBA season. Now, when we get to the NBA season next year, my volume will go back up because it's the thing that I want to do the most. But the message at that point in time will be 9 months deep, or 6 months deep at least. I think we'll have a pretty good understanding of what we got to do here. But thank you guys for checking out this first version of the new process. Same as the old process, but slightly different. Thank you to PrizePicks for sponsoring this video. I really appreciate it. We're certainly going to hit part of these challenges with PrizePicks because obviously there are not like top 1% payouts at PrizePicks, but there are ways to take plays at PrizePicks that are very, very plus EV moves that you don't even really have to think about. They're not picks, they're logic plays. And we'll get into that in the future. But for now, this was the process.